call is from Linda. She's in Atlanta, Georgia, for our guest Matthew Gunning of Georgia Gwinnett College. Linda, good morning. Go ahead.
Good morning. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Hi. I actually wanted to ask about the Libertarian candidate, because I know the focus, at least for the Senate race, is mostly between Walker and Warnock, but we also have a Libertarian candidate there, and while I don't think it's likely their person's actually going to win, I do think, I feel like a lot of people are tired of both Democrats and Republicans and might want to make a statement. So I want to know how much of an effect the Libertarian candidate for both the Senate and gubernatorial offices would be, and then what would happen if someone was actually elected.
So Libertarians in Georgia are very active. In some states, Libertarians may not contest all offices, but the Libertarian Party of Georgia is one of the more active Libertarian parties, and they regularly field candidates for statewide offices and oftentimes even for offices lower down the ballot. And so as third parties go, they're one of the more active third parties, broadly speaking, in the U.S., but specifically in Georgia. I have a colleague, for example, who is active in the Libertarian Party. So I give them full marks for trying to develop as a third party. Unfortunately, the way the U.S. electoral system is set up, it's very much biased in favor of two large parties, and it's difficult for third parties to gain a threshold. Perhaps if Georgia adopted some alternative voting mechanisms like proportional voting, or as Alaska and Maine have recently done, ranked choice voting, we might see someone who is a Libertarian Party advance to the final choice and even potentially win in a state that had ranked choice voting. In the case of Georgia, for example, the Libertarian Party usually matters in the sense that does it win enough votes to prevent either party's candidate from obtaining a majority? Because Georgia, unlike many other states, requires that a candidate win a majority or 50% plus one of all votes cast. If we have an extremely tight election between Warnock and Mr. Walker, and the Libertarian candidate takes 2 or 3% of the vote, it's not going to be sufficient for the Libertarian to advance to the runoff, but it might be sufficient to prevent either candidate from winning the first round, in which case in Georgia we vote again several weeks later between the top two finishers. As to your last part about what effect a Libertarian candidate would have if elected, I actually think that it would have a positive effect. I think that if you compare the United States to other countries, that voters may be happier if they had more than just two choices in an election, and having more than two parties in the U.S. Senate probably would increase voter satisfaction, or at least might increase voters' belief that there's a party that speaks to their concerns. And so I am a fan personally of having more choices and perhaps voting systems that make more than two parties an option for holding power in the country.